People know me as many things. Some as a master memer, some as the person who we watch if Link isn't on, or perhaps even just devilishly handsome. What some people may not know about me, however, is that I'm a huge history buff. Here's a bit of trivia for you. Do you know what the earliest discovered written words in the English language are? Dating all the way back to the Middle Ages, and written on stone walls were the words, "Shut up, Daniel. You can't build a control deck on a budget." Daniel then dropped $200 on Magic the Gathering because he's an idiot. So this concept has been ingrained in our brains since the dawn of time, but how true is it? Honestly, it's pretty true, but that's not going to stop me from putting together some horrible monstrosity. Today, we're going to be building Budget Telvanni Control. To go over the rules again, we will only be using cards from the starter decks and the Skyrim Precon decks, as well as commons and rares to make these decks. We will also be using whatever Precon deck from Morrowind matches the house that we'll be doing, in this case Telvanni. We will not be using any cards from the other pre-made decks of Morrowind, only the Telvanni deck. For those wondering why I am using Skyrim pre-made decks, it is because I feel very confident in recommending that as the first purchase for any new player. The Skyrim Precon decks are fantastic, and everyone should buy them. That should be the first thing you do when you start an account before anything else. This deck finds a lot more use out of our starter packs, with Ancano, Brynjolf, Sun and Shadow, and Paarthurnax all making appearances from their respective starter decks. Device Experiments joins from the Telvanni starter. We get one Leaf Lurker and one Shadowfen from the story, and one of each from Skyrim Premades. There is an Ice Storm from the Skyrim Premades, and one Final Ice Storm from the Telvanni deck itself. The two major issues with Control on a budget are lack of quality removal and a lack of good finisher, so we'll tackle both with the same thing, and that is the Shout package. While running Shouts in a 75 card deck is going to be less consistent by design, the power level is simply too high to not do it. Drain Vitality is flat out the best card in the game, and Solitaire is the best finisher any budget deck has ever had access to. Combining it with the support cards and Giant Bat, we've already made a dent into two major issues. We'll also add sheer points for synergy with both Drain Vitality and Device Experiments as well. Adding a bit more removal is next on the menu. We'll add 2 Firebolts and 2 Negations for 4 early game pings, as well as Lightning Bolts. Our current hard removal consists mostly of Prayers and Crying, so we'll add a few Spirit Knives as well. Next, we'll look at a few utility cards, because I had nowhere else to put them in this video, so... Telvanni Oathman is a 5-cost 4/4 draw card in this deck who could potentially give you Betray fodder as well. Nixox is good for fighting in the board in the mid to late game, as well as a target for our next card, which is Barrelzar's Tinkering. Tinkering is mostly just a fun card in this deck. It can occasionally come in useful, but it's mostly in there because it's really freaking fun to play, so people should play with it. Weirdly enough, we're almost done. All we have left is shoring up our early game with creatures and adding some draw. We use Wardcrafters, Harpies, Fighters Guild Recruits, Skooma Racketeers, and Rising of Bones for the first part. Skooma Racketeer is the weirdest one, mostly just because we don't really have any good 3s here. Really, just look at the commons and rare 3s in these colors, and most of them are bad. It's really tough to find options, and Skooma Racketeer is okay. Lastly, we'll make up for the fact that we don't have Baroness or Shine by adding a metric fuck ton of draw with Scouts Reports, Shadow Shifts, Mastermind, Schemers, Catspaw, and Thieves Guild Recruit. I said that really fast. I hope Editor Ian can keep up. I may have overcorrected the lack of Baroness here, so this is something you probably want to toy with. If you find you have too much draw, remove some stuff. If you find you have not enough, then I don't think any amount of draw will satisfy you.
They make it too easy. From above.
Overall, the deck struggles the most with resource extending aggro, like Crusader or Halalu, but can beat anything with the right draw. It plays similarly to Scout with Bat and Vitality, forming the crux of your defense in late game, but it has cards like Experiments and Sun and Shadow to form a backup plan of a late game, and it can just make for some really fun games overall. It's just a really fun archetype. Telvanni is the fun class, maybe not the best class, but it absolutely is the most fun. There's a ton of cards I would advise looking into to fill holes as your collection expands, but just because of the importance of them, I'm going to point out 2 major ones, Namira's Shrine and Eclipse Baroness. Finding more consistent draw engines will let you cut some of the absurd amount of cycle that I've put in the deck and replace it with defensive options to more consistently reach late game. Late game with this deck can be very heavy or very light depending on how you build it, so I would experiment it and tweak it as much as you want and see what works for you. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned in the coming weeks for more of the new Morrowind houses on budget of... Fuck, don't sue me, CVH!